Hey everyone, hope you're all well. Welcome to this installment of Gimme 10, dedicated this week to ambient techno and IDM. And this is kind of like a part two to the Detroit techno installment I did a couple of weeks ago. So if you enjoyed that, then you're in the right place here. You'll maybe discover or reinforce your love for some of these records. I will preface this by saying that I am no expert in this field. Like a lot of music I discuss, I have no expertise in it. I'm just a music fan, and I read, and I want to maybe showcase this book on Warp, which was very useful when I was, preparing this video. Warp is obviously a label synonymous with IDM at the very least. With the likes of Aphex Twin, Boards of Canada, Square Pusher, LFO, and the like. We are going to talk about those. If you want a good idea of the sound of Warp and the sound of IDM and ambient techno as a whole, I highly recommend you pick up those two compilations, Artificial Intelligence Volume 1 and Volume 2, which are a really great snapshot on the music scene. If you're talking about intelligent dance music or ambient techno. Start with talking about Aphex Twin, Richard D. James, with his very early masterpiece, Selected Ambient Works 1985-1992, which is basically volume 1. There is a volume 2 from, I think, 94, which is more like an ambient record rather than an ambient techno record. So Richard D. James, born in Ireland, has grown up in Cornwall in England, and he's kind of like a techno wizard. His technical know-how is probably unsurpassed in the way that he was able to pull out keyboards and completely rebuild them, and had this sort of addiction to get the sound and to get to the sound. This is a very ethereal, futuristic kind of collection of tunes that he made at home. Some of them sound very sort of, 4-track, style. It's very hissy and very, DIY. It's but Richard D. James very heavily influenced by acid house in the 1980s. Obviously, a child of the Detroit techno sound. In a way, but I think everyone should, own this record. In my opinion, this is a fantastic electronic music record. It takes you on a journey. It's just sublime. As I said, ethereal, and the beats are always kind of fresh every time you listen to this. I rediscover something every time I listen to it. This didn't come out on Warp because Aphex Twin is usually associated with Warp Records. This is the record that came out before his Warp tenure. So this came out on a Belgian label called RNS Records. Yes. So, this is the sort of like the founding stone of IDM practically. The next record I want to talk to is obviously a Warp record. And it's the magical, also ethereal, also highly melodic Music as the Right to Children by Boards of Canada. And Boards of Canada is a duo of brothers from Scotland, Marcus Ewan and Michael Sanderson, their names are. And their part grew up in Canada. Their family migrated there for a while. And their obsession with the National Film Boards of Board of Canada, that's where the name comes from, is, I think, evident in their aesthetics as a whole. If anyone who's seen the video for Day Van Cowboy from their third album can attest to the fact that, they're like grainy, Super 8 kind of, and the music is like that too, lots of vintage keyboards, a lot of amazing kind of it's very psychedelic, very mellow. This record particularly has a very psychedelic tinge. You've got songs like I can never say the name of that song, but this song here, which is the Roy Roy ROYGBIV, which is the Colors of the Rainbow, I think. Reds, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo and violet. I think that's what it stands for. That song has got a very sort of like, almost transcendent psychedelic sound, and you've got a very kind of like hypnotic kind of tinge on some of those songs. The opener, Wildlife Analysis, for example, which takes you in a kind of like, where you're going with this. From 1998. Everybody should also own Music as the Right to Children. I think it's one of the very best records ever made, full stop. Not just, we're not talking about IDM. Whilst I'm talking about Warp Records, I have to mention Autechre. Autechre, and there's nothing much to see there, it's a very plain cover. Is a duo from Manchester, made of Sean Booth and Rob Brown. And Autechre are very, peculiar or special in their own way, as in the sense that they've invented their own musical language. I mean, much like Boards of Canada and Aphex Twin, if I'm going to be totally honest. But the music is very abstract. It's very glitchy, it's very, at times, cold, almost mathematical. It's a very complex music that you've got. This is Try Repeat. I think it's the third album, if I'm, something like that. Or second or third album. Amber and Cfield are also worth visiting if you're interested in Autechre, but I think for me the pick of the bunch is this one, because I don't know, it's one of these albums that you can just immerse yourself in without it being overly aggressive or overly demanding, and that's the one I would recommend as an entry point. Now, obviously, if you're into Autechre and if you want to explore more of what these guys have done, I mean, some of their further releases are way more, they will offer you way more complexity in the sense of, and music can be quite aggressive at times. So, but Try Repeat is fantastic. I will continue with, something different with this record. This is Consumed by Plastic Man. Plastic Man is Richie Houghton. Born in Oxford, I think, and now residing in Berlin for many years, and has a lot of aliases, and one of his aliases is Plastic Man. And this record here is fabulous. I mean, really, it's one of these, this is a direct descendant of Detroit techno, and there's a little bit of house there as well, but it's mostly techno. Plastic Man makes very dark and minimal and kind of ominous music, very bass driven. The two title tracks on this, Consume and Consumed, which is I think the second last track, Consumed, are just fabulous to die for, really. Really driving, and when you listen to it on big speakers like I've got, it's just the bass it just absorbs you just about in every way. This was released in 1998. He's done some really great records, in collaboration with Pete Namlook, and if you're on the lookout for that kind of music, I think is more in the sort of progressive electronic realm than purely ambient techno, but this is a fantastic record. Now, another Manchester outfit. I was talking about Autechre, and I want to talk about the future sound of London. And I want to showcase those two albums largely because they follow each other. They're very much in the same continuation of one another. This is a double album. this is a single album. This may appeal to you more because of its brevity, or maybe a double album is too much for people to get through these days. But I think the pick of the lot for me is probably Lifeforms. Okay, Dead Cities is really good, but I'll talk about Lifeforms. So this is a duo of Gary Cobain and Brian Doggins, and they, as I said, from Manchester. The music is a mix between ambient techno and there's a lot of ambient dub in there as well. It's very dubby, and kind of again psychedelic, kind of surreal in its approach. It's very, you've got a real. You can see they're really inspired by other things than just techno and electronic music. Also, they go and fish their sounds, maybe, as I said, in like, for example, in dub, which is there's quite a, the sound that you get on some of the tracks is very, very dubby. And the title track there, Lifeforms, I know it's pretty predictable for me to say the title track, but the title track is it's absolute killer. So it's very sort of melodic, very lush. You get a sense that these guys make very sort of playful, very, very, they're having fun making the music, basically. So very, very highly recommended. Progressive electronic, ambient dub, kind of that kind of mix. Right, next, a duo from Somerset in Western England, Global Communication. This album is the second and final record. The first album they did was a kind of a cover album for a kind of a shoegaze project, which I've also got, Chapter House. And the second record probably is the more successful of the pair. It's called 7614, literally. And those two guys, so there's Tom Middleton and Mark Pritchard. They hail from as I said, Taunton in Somerset. And the music, what could you describe the music as? I think you would say it's ambient, verging on down tempo. So you have a lot of kind of very chill kind of beats on this. It's very spacey, very meditative music, very sort of trance-inducing. You listen to this album, you zone out. Like it's beautiful. All the tracks have timings on them, so to recommend you a specific track, I don't think I can on this one. I just think it's a lovely album that flows. I don't think there are, in my experience of this album, there are no moments that I would choose over other ones. I think it's an album that absolutely flows from side to side pretty flawlessly. And, it's very spacey ambient. And I think if you're into very sort of chilled out music, I think you'd like this. Next, I want to talk about Cfield. Cfield is what would happen if you crossed Aphex Twin with My Bloody Valentine. It's a very kind of shoegazy sound, but lots of dubby moments and very sort of ambient techno overlay. It's kind of confusing as music. No, it's not. It's really interesting as a mix. You just wouldn't think of merging guitar music with non-guitar music. They're based around the duo of Mark Clifford and Sarah Peacock, male-female kind of dynamic there. There's some female vocals there from Sarah. Here is Cfield. This is an album that came out in 1993, and obviously with this kind of, shoegaze really like undertone throughout the record. It's got this very soothing kind of quality, and dare I say a little bit, I don't know, it's like when I was talking about Drexciya in the Detroit Techno video, very aquatic sounding, very sort of like nautical kind of like, and it's all blue as well. The album is called Quickie. I don't even know. Don't ask me. It's like diff jazz. Nobody knows how to pronounce it. People call it diffuse. It's not diffuse. It's diff jazz, people. And this one, somebody will correct me. I hope. But it's a very sort of absorbing sound. I was talking about global communications being very spacey, and this is what you get with this. I really like industrious and plain song, and all the song. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's fantastic. I will continue with Underworld because we have to mention Underworld. We can't make a video about like the UK techno scene without mentioning Carl Hyde and Rick Smith. This album I fucking love. I think it's a masterpiece from start to finish. I think it's the third LP, 1994. The two of them hail from Romford, of all places. I used to live round the corner from Romford near. In fact, I used to shop in Romford. Side story. Nobody cares. Nobody gives a fuck. But I'm going to say it anyway. So I can sort of relate to this area. It's like Ian Dury came from the very same area. It's like there's something about Essex. I think it forges the mind and the spirits. My UK viewers will no doubt agree with this. So this is more tech house, progressive house. It's more housey than just pure techno. There's vocals all over the place. That's a first basically clue that things are getting very housey, because there's in techno it tends to be less about the vocals and more about the beats. And in house, I think the vocals take a sort of kind of equal stand. There's some tracks like Dark and Long, the opening track. Skyscraper, I Love You. What a track, what a tune. This is fabulous, this record. This is futuristic. This is, like, it's got a very sort of urban soundscape kind of, sound, this thing, It really is absolutely amazing, this record. I highly recommend it. Let me talk about Stasis now, or Stasis, the Stasi, no, Stasis, I think. This is a project from Steve Picton, which I don't really know much about Steve Picton. He's worked under a lot of aliases. This record I picked up very randomly during lockdown from one of my local shops. I was just ordering some records, and I'm going to be frank, I knew nothing about this. Like, it was just there, it looked cool. I listened to a track or two online. I thought, that sounds cool. But I'm loving this. What I love about Stasis and this record, this is, I think, the third record under this moniker. It's called From the Old to the New. Came out in 1996. And what I love about this record is the mix between electronics and live drums, and I love that. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the band Kreidler, a German band. Does that really well. Has got this very, very sort of dark electronic, but mixed with like live drums. I think the mixture of the two works really super well, and this certainly is an example. Steve Picton hails from London, as far as I can work out, and it's just a beautiful, ambient techno, but with live drums. That's all I can say. High recommendation from me. Couple more. I want to talk about Gas. And Gas is not from the UK. Gas is Wolfgang Voigt, or Wolfgang Voigt, as his name should really be. And he goes under the moniker Gas. Now, these records they're unbelievable. Those three records. So this is called Zauberberg, the Magic Mountain. This is the second album is called Königsforst. the King's Forest, and this is called Pop. Out of the three albums, I think Pop is the last one in the trilogy. I think it's the most accomplished, but just by a small margin. Zauberberg is very very dark, very ominous, like super kind of like tense and somber and surreal, and in general his music is somber and surreal. But Pop has got a more, I don't know, psychedelic, like euphoric kind of tinge. They're very long tracks usually. His tracks go for like 10-15 minutes, and you don't know when a track finishes, another one starts. This is one of the best ambient techno IDM artists that I can think of. Wolfgang Voigt, amazing discography, and these came out between 92 and 94 or 98 or something like that. No, sorry, let me backtrack. These came out in between 98 and 2000. Sorry, don't know what I'm talking about. And lastly, a modern record, because a more modern record, one that I'm totally obsessed with. When I did my top favorite albums of the 2010s, which was a video I did like a long time back, I placed this record in the top 25 favorite records, and for good reason, because it's amazing. Like, it is John Hopkins' most fully realized record, like no question. So John Hopkins is from the UK. It's his I think 7th LP, from 2013. And again, like, I don't think he's done anything that's more accomplished. The opener, We Disappear, it gets you. The beats are so in your face. It's beatific, that's what we call it, it's dense, it's tense, it's it's brooding, it's cerebral, beautiful music. Open Eye Signal, Breathe, like the first 4 tracks basically are fire. They're just amazing. So, this is more in sort of micro house, tech house kind of realm than ambient techno purely. But anyway, that's the video for today. I hope you enjoyed my ramblings. And you can leave me some comments or tell me that I've forgotten something or not talked about something. I wanted to talk about Jan Jelinek as well, but you only get so much time. Okay, take care everyone, and leave me some comments as usual.